Yeah, welcome everyone to today's webinar. So this is the IXUS 2024 release highlights. So this just shows all the features that we've now implemented for the latest release of IXUS, which is the first one of the year. And yeah, I'll just go through the demonstration or the presentation here, and then afterwards I'll also showcase in the modeler itself. And yeah, we'll take some questions after that as well. Okay, just a quick overview of the topics we're going to go through. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is the latest release of the IXUS Manager and Modeler, so it's 4.11.0, and some of the highlights of the features that we've implemented or the improvements that we've made, but I'll go through in more detail now. So the first one is customizable spatial averaging schemes. So what we've implemented now in the actually in the manager as well as the modeler, so that it's essentially implementing the manager as a supporting component for the modeler implementation. Yeah, we've added the ability to essentially create customizable spatial averaging schemes that can then be used by the modeler for the exclusion zone calculations, as well as for environmental slices and field points. So how that works is in the manager database, the specific scheme can be created, as you can see here on the right-hand side, where the sample points are essentially added to show which areas we want to calculate at, with 0 being the evaluation point, essentially. So this allows quite easily to create like non-uniform offsets for the spatial averaging schemes, as well as to place the evaluation point at a very specific position. So for example, the scheme here at the bottom, where you have the evaluation point at 0, which then allows the environmental slice to be displayed at the bottom of, not in the middle or the top. And also just to create schemes with additional sampling points, which I'll also demonstrate later with in the modeler as well. To set this up on your instance, just please contact us at support@ixusapp.com, as you all know by now, and we will assist you to adding this to your manager, because we wouldn't want someone to maybe make a mistake here, and then that will make the results incorrect. Okay, so the second feature is a bit of a combination feature, but it's the geometry import and export feature. So this allows the export of the entire CAD model or IXUS CAD model via the IXUS Modeller. So we now have the option to export and then select IXUS as and then you'll be able to export the entire model as a .ixus file. That includes all the pictures, all the antennas, all the environmental slices and everything. So that's a complete model of that site. It's very similar, well, not very similar, it's exactly the same as you would do in the manager via the export CAD model feature. So it creates the same type of file, model file. That file can also then obviously be used in the manager to import into the manager. So that's nice functionality there as well. The second part of this feature is the import geometry feature, where you can select import geometry and then once again select the IXUS format. That allows you to import only the geometry of a .ixus model file. So it will not import all the antennas and all the environmental slices and all those things, only the geometry, because it really doesn't make sense to import the entire site with everything to another site. But what this now allows you to do is essentially create from a blank site. You can create some geometry, some very specific geometry, let's say for antenna mounting structure like antenna sled or something like that. You can then export that as a .ixus file, and that becomes then something that you can import into any other project or any other model. It's also then simply imported as normal modeler geometry, so you can then edit those details, or you can edit the geometry afterwards as well. Once you do this import geometry feature, it will also automatically launch the new alignment tool, which leads me to the next feature that I'll highlight now, which is the modeler alignment tool. So what this does is essentially you can select some geometry or combination of geometry, select this tool, and it allows you to quote unquote move an object from a specific work plane or source work plane to a destination work plane. So it will realign the object depending on where you select these work planes. So this makes it very nice and easy to have geometry and then align it with another piece of geometry, for example, on a rooftop that has a angled surface or something like that. Yeah, and you can toggle the orientation of these work planes by just with the R and the F key on the keyboard. So yeah, that makes it very nice and easy. The next feature is the face offset feature that we've implemented. So long-standing users of IXUS might know that it can be quite a task to create, let's say, for example, a parapet wall on a rooftop, similar to what is illustrated here, as you need to create lots of markers to have to create a new polygon, as an example, that you can use to extrude and then remove the intersecting section. But now with this feature, it makes it a lot easier, as you can simply select the feature, select the face, and then set the offset that you desire. That will then offset to the inside or to the outside by the distance that is specified. That can then easily be used to create a parapet wall as by just sweeping that face, that new face that is created, and then removing intersecting section. And then we also added the ability or this feature where you have a essentially an icon that can be enabled or disabled. It's like you can toggle it, similar to, like, for example, the wireframe mode. And what that does, it will then allow a user to snap to a exclusion zone mesh. That makes it very easy to, for example, measure the distances of this exclusion zone using the point-to-point distance tool. We've also added this visual distinction to the zone, so that it's very clear that this mode is enabled. And it can also be actually included in pictures. So if you want this in a report that with this specific mesh added, you can do that as well. Then some nice user experience enhancements and bug fixes. So so previously with the modeler, if you released a modeler session, there was the option where you can choose to say yes, you want to release a modeler session, and then it will provide you with another window that just tells you the session is successful, and then you have to click again. We've removed that because it's not really necessary. So now once you've released the session and it was successful, it will simply automatically close the modeler. The next one is the modeler host address defaulting to localhost after upgrade. So we've now made an enhancement there that if you already have a host address set up and you upgrade your IXUS Modeller by running the new installer, it will retain that host address. It won't default back to localhost, and then you have to set it again. Yeah, so we've done that change, and then we've also been making sure that we also leave some time to focus on fixing some of the bugs that is in the modeler. So there's quite a few nice stuff that we've essentially fixed now with this release as well. Notably the signage placement that wouldn't properly, let's call it, stick to the face. Labels, font does not resize according to the font size change. So essentially that you had to restart the modeler for a font size to take into effect. Now that's fixed. Changing signs does not update the size. So if you had a very small sign and you changed that sign to a big sign, the sign would shrink to the previous size. So that's fixed. Snapping points cannot snap to geometry under the lobe imprint. So you can now place things on the lobe imprint and it will simply place it on the geometry that's below the lobe imprint. And custom lobe imprint does not change color when preferences. And so if you changed the color of your custom lobe imprint, the custom exclusion zone, the lobe imprint would not change with that. You had to restart for that to take into effect. That's also been fixed. And then a number of fixes that was related to some modeler crashes that were being experienced. And that is the handful of, well, not a few handful of features that we've implemented. I'll now go to the modeler just to demonstrate a few of those. Okay. All right, so here we have the modeler open with a simulation done. So the first one that I mentioned was the customizable spatial averaging schemes. So this specific example for our specific manager, we've added 2 new schemes. For example, here we've added a 5.6 foot range scheme and a 7.6 foot range scheme, but that can obviously be increased or customized. You can make a 11-point scheme if you want as well, or whatever the case may be. But we've added this one here to our demo instance. So if we simulate that, it will essentially create the exclusion zones, but using 7-point spatial averaging for that. Those same schemes can then obviously be used with the environmental slices. And as I mentioned, if you use for example, a scheme where you set the evaluation point at 0, and then the additional samples above that, then that will allow you to create an environmental slice where the slice is displayed at the bottom and not in the middle as would typically be displayed with a specific scheme like this. And there's the new schemes as well added. Okay. The next one is the geometry import and export. So as mentioned, if you export, let's go over here. Let's do the following and say file export IXUS, and then we can say example and save. So that then export this entire site as a .ixus file. So if I take that one and I just drag it over here, yeah, sure, let's save. Not sure what changes I've made, but here is now as you can see here at the top on my desktop.ixus example.ixus file. So this is now not the model that is connected to the manager, but simply a .ixus model file that I'm editing over here. And it's the entire model with all the environmental slices and everything. The same as though you would export from the manager itself. When we get to import geometry, however, as you see there, it's not just export, it's import geometry. And if we choose an IXUS file now, and if I choose the same example.ixus, we'll have to provide it with a prefix to avoid conflicts with the geometry. And as you see, also it launches now this alignment tool by default after you've imported. And as you can see, this is only the geometry now that's also being imported of that example site that I've added. Okay. The next one then, so no, not the next one. So also maybe just demonstrate. So for example, I've also added a few IXUS model files as an example to demonstrate. Let's say, for example, I've created now some geometry to represent a street light. So if I import that, let's call it street light. And there I have this geometry pieces that I've created that I can now import into another. And this is completely editable, obviously, because it's simply geometry components that was used. And as well as you can obviously get creative in the way that you want to create this and make sure that you can maybe union the stuff that you don't want editable and leave the stuff that you perhaps want to edit. For example, here I've unioned this sled. And then if I now place this, and again, you can use this alignment tool, you can toggle to align it with the building. So now this has been unioned, and this sled mount has also been unioned inside the union, but the poles is outside. So now the poles is quite easy to change, as an example. So it's completely editable like that. All right. And that pretty much brings me to the next feature, which you've already now seen in action, which is the alignment tool. So if I select this object, there's this next tool available called the alignment tool, where you can specify the source work plane. So for me, I'm just going to specify over here. And then you can go align this now to other geometry. For example, if I want it aligned with this over here, I can go place it. So here it will align with this face, and here it will align over there. And I can toggle that and just place it like that. It's very easy to align objects like that. The next thing where this is quite useful as well, if this has been rotated in a very weird way that you're not able to fix this now, it's now quite easy just to realign this with the ground, for example, and I can flip the blue axis. So now it's this time it was realigned with north, but I think you get the idea there. All right, so that's the alignment tool, and then the next is the face offset feature. So as an example, this rooftop over here, so previously it would be quite a task now to create a parapet for this, as you need to create markers on the inside of each of these corners. As well, here on the diagonal edge, let's call it that, you actually had, so this is now a bit tricky. Let's say you want to make a 1 meter parapet. If you go -1 here in the red, and -1 here in the red, it's not the same location. So the actual location needs to be there somewhere in between. So it makes it a bit tricky. So you had to like create a rectangle or a cuboid there to make your life easier. But now you can just launch this offset the selected object, so offset geometry. Then you can select the face, and you can specify the offset as, let's say, 1 foot, and you can also reverse it to go to the outside. But this time we want to go to the inside, and now it creates this face on the inside that you can then simply sweep up, let's say 10 feet, and then let's move that down and remove the intersecting section. And there's the parapet. So that's now very easy and quick to accomplish. Then the final feature that we want to highlight here is the exclusion zone snapping. So as I mentioned, there's this button that you can now toggle. So if I toggle that, you will get this mesh being displayed, like a visual distinction that this is now activated. And now it's very easy to, let's say, use the point-to-point distance label and just measure, okay, what is the distance from over here to there. Let's do the horizontal distance. And very easy to measure the vertical distance as well. So let's say from there to there, vertical place. That's now very quick and easy to do. Also, we've added this visual distinction to show that this mode is now active. And you can actually keep this mode active in pictures if you want as well. So if you want to use this in a reporting for some reason, you can leave it like that, or you can deactivate it for certain pictures, and it stays activated for per picture essentially. So if you only want to show one of them where this is active, you can have that. All right. I think those are the most the big features. So the final one that I probably can demonstrate is so if I would now close the modeler, save yes. Do you want to release your current session? So previously, if you selected yes, it would give you another pop-up. Now we'll just release the session and actually then close the modeler. So you don't have to click twice. All right. And then obviously there's, as I mentioned, quite a few bugs that we've also addressed. If you want a comprehensive breakdown of all the release notes or stuff that we've added, so you can go to the help desk and then to the knowledge base under releases. So you can find the IXUS 2024.1, and then you can find the release notes over here as a PDF. As well as the fact test report if you want to download that as well. And we'll upload the webinar video here, link here as well, once we have that. Okay. Okay, so then also just want to point you to our support channels. So I'm sure everyone knows by now the support@ixusapp.com, where you can send your quick queries regarding anything that you want support on. If it's a bit more of a comprehensive investigation from our side, or where we need to assist with finding an issue with a file and stuff like that, we highly recommend that you log a support ticket via the help desk. You can, I think it's called a technical support ticket. That allows us to very nicely track the progress of that issue and keep all of the file attachments all in one place. And you can schedule a call via our Calendly link for anything that you want to discuss with us if you want a direct support call. Yeah, and as I mentioned, the release notes available on the knowledge base, and also feel free to log any features or ideas on our feature request section on the help desk as well. And that is it for the presentation. Thank you very much for attending.